You are listening to The Tatiana Show. This show may contain adult content, language, and humor and is intended for mature audiences. If that's not you, please stop listening. Nothing you hear on The Tatiana Show is intended as financial advice, legal advice, or really anything other than entertainment. Take everything you hear with a grain of salt. Oh, and if you're listening to us on an affiliate network, the ideas and views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the network that you're listening on or of any sponsors or any affiliate products you may hear about on this show. Now that that's squared away, let's start the show. Hey there, it's time for the show, The Tatiana Show, where you make friends and talk life and crypto. Thank you to our sponsor, blocktap.io. Please go to their website and check out their universal cryptocurrency API to get reliable cryptocurrency data. blocktap.io. What's the point of all this technology without a little love in our lives? Our hosts, Tatiana Moroz, Dr. Stephanie Murphy, and Lauren Kasovitz, have come together to bring you Proof of Love. Go to proofoflovecast.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tatiana Show. We're broadcasting to you today with a new guest who's never been on the show, but we're very excited because we're going to talk about some fun stuff. Malcolm CasSelle, who's the senior advisor to Wax and the former president and CIO at Wax. But we also are joined with, of course, my wonderful co-host, Josh Shigala. Hey, Josh, how's it going?
Good afternoon, Tatiana. It's wonderful to be back on the show and with another great guest.
Well, we've been trying to line this up for a little while because, I don't know, it's a topic that I think both of us are really interested in. So We're going to have Malcolm chat with us a little bit about what they've been doing over at Wax. But before we get started, I wanted to make sure that we said a nice, warm thank you to our sponsor. We've got Token Talks, and they are a wonderful podcast from a VC company called Wing VC. So if you go to wing.vc/podcast, you can listen to their podcast called Token Talks, and it's quite cool. It's a little bit of a different perspective. So wherever you get podcasts, and for more information, please visit wing.vc/podcast and listen to Token Talks. Cool. So What's going on your end? How's it going over at Vaultoro?
Oh, really good. People traded more Bitcoin and gold, physical gold yesterday the last 2 days than the whole of March. So it's this volatility is back, and people are really enjoying trading into allocated gold instead of Tether, which is I think it's great because people are starting to understand what we're doing here at Vaultoro and why.
You know, we should really have an episode about stable coins and sort of compare it to gold at some point. So that'll be something for the future. And I know you guys have a lot of exciting stuff coming up, so we'll save it for another time. But why don't we bring on our guest, Malcolm, and hear what he's got to say. Hey, Malcolm.
Hey, how's it going today?
Great. We're so happy that you could join us today. We've tried to coordinate this a few times, but today's the day.
All right.
Cool. So Can you tell people at home a little bit about Wax and what your role is over there and what the progress has been so far? A little bit of company trajectory would be great.
Sure. So I was the first president and CIO, and I ran the token sale that we had in 2017. And it was really a fantastic opportunity to talk to the world about how we were creating a blockchain for e-commerce. And we come from the lineage of virtual item sales, and had this really massive marketplace we built for virtual items from video games. But we also come from the idea of really trading assets. In fact, our CEO was the co-founder of Tether. I know you guys were just talking about that. So the idea of having a virtual item moving back and forth that connects to real world assets or real world value is something we've been really comfortable with for a long time. And so what we've done is we built a protocol chain designed specifically for commerce, and it's about to go to mainnet actually in Q2, which we're in Q2 now. And we've been running the chain actually since June. We're as the only block producer, and now it's actually the most used chain in the world. It's doing millions of transactions per day, and quite a bit of revenue running through it as well, several $1 million a day. So I think we've seen a real a significant amount of adoption for it, and we're really interested to see how the world expands when everyone has access to a blockchain designed for e-commerce.
Hang on. So what's being transacted? I thought Wax was purely for in-game items, non-fungible tokens that would represent, let's say, you've found an axe in game, and you've got this axe now, and that is represented by a token, so that's tradable on a secondary market. Are you saying that there's other use cases now that you guys
Yeah, there's plenty of use cases. In other words, if you look on the site, you'll see all kinds of virtualized items. One of the marketplaces we have, and it was really the beginning of our efforts, is a site called OPSkins. And on that, we've run a lot of Wax assets through that, and we've basically replaced the traditional back end of OPSkins with Wax. So it's all running on Wax now. And there's several hundred third-party sites now that are using the Wax infrastructure to buy, sell, and trade. And so one of the things we have, for example, is a Wax key. And a Wax key is just a virtual item that's basically a stable coin. It's worth $2.50, and that's used for lots of sites that want to essentially buy, sell, trade digital items, including skins, like from video games. And it's used quite broadly now. And so there's lots of different items that have been virtualized and put on the site. And that's essentially where the market is right now. The number of games who've embraced virtual items and virtual item trading continues to grow. But it is actually, I think, just part of the story. I think that we're going to see just a phenomenal amount of trading that occurs for all things digital.
Yeah, so I mean, just to bring it back a bit for the audience that don't know what a skin is and this and that, a skin is basically a texture on a digital item. So you might have a car, and that car gets painted with a mural on the side, or you might have a gun, and that gun is painted with camo or with some crazy colors, and that then becomes valuable. And this is what's quite surprising about games, is that these in-game items are a multi-billion-dollar industry already, right?
Yeah, it's quite massive. Our estimates are over 50 billion as the trading volume annually and the size of the market for these items. And it's significant because people really love these items, and they treat them like they would anything that's prized. And we see that across, everything. Like, I grew up, and people loved baseball cards and coins and stamps and things like that. And now today it's basically virtual items from video games and sneakers. That's where people spend a lot of money to buy, sell, and trade things. And so inside games, because people spend so much time in there, they like to customize them. And that's essentially 100% of Fortnite's business model. Probably many of you have heard of Fortnite. If you haven't played, I'm sure you know somebody who's played. And in that game, basically 100% of the revenue comes from customizing your character.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts that how much people really fall in love with what they're making, and they've put a lot of time and effort into doing whatever they're doing in the game. And in the past, it's been very unfortunate, because if you have built all of this value inside a game, spent hundreds of hours gaining this value, you can trade it within the game. Some games allow you to do that. There's sort of a, World of Warcraft was one where you just jump in and I think you could trade there. But now the whole point of these blockchain assets is that you take these in-game items, represent them by a type of colored coin, which you can follow through the blockchain as a non-fungible token, a token that is individual and can be tracked through the chain, and then trade them on secondary markets, having a price discovery mechanism outside of the game, having the ability for the game not to just take your item and steal it from you almost, because it's just in their database. And this is a really interesting use case for, I see a lot. I've been to, just like Tatiana, literally hundreds of conferences, and there's so many use cases for blockchain that just don't for blockchains that don't need to be there. But I think in-game items is one of the very few cases where I see the use of a non-fungible token being actually useful.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a fantastic opportunity for gamers to really own those assets, and as they've become more and more valuable, it becomes more important. We sold a skin for $61,000, and I think that's the most expensive skin sold, certainly in Counter-Strike Global Offensive. It was by far the most expensive. And so can you imagine if you own that item and then suddenly the game company bans you or just terminates your account, without any recourse? I mean, it would be horrible.
Right. Now, what do you guys do if there's a theft? Let's say there's a theft of someone's $61,000 gun skin. And do you guys have any power over that, or is it literally immutable, bad luck, you didn't secure your keys?
Yeah, I would say, it's just like a Bitcoin. If it's in somebody else's wallet, we don't have control over somebody else's wallet.
Yeah, right. And so how do you deal with developers, game developers? See, if you were on the Steam platform, Steam have their own in kind of trading space. Is that correct?
Yeah. They have a marketplace for trading, and it's designed for their own ecosystem, and we've really designed an open ecosystem, which is one of the reasons we think it's going to win in the long term, or at least be a really powerful alternative for folks who don't want to be in a closed ecosystem. And Well, no. So the point is simply that anyone can build a marketplace using Wax, right? That's the whole idea. That it's really e-commerce in a box. So you click a couple buttons and then boom, you have a store. And so it allows anyone to really compete with anyone else who is running a store. So if you have an audience, it allows you to make money, providing those functions, buy, sell, and trade.
Have you reached out to different gaming companies in order to get them to adopt, or how does that work? And is that a difficult process trying to convince them? Because it seems like they would be some of the first people to really get the value prop, and that seems indicated by the success so far. But what was that process like?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of game companies have talked to us about it. We've reached out to many have reached out to us. And I'd say it's an evolving discussion. Some companies are really interested and open to it, and some are reticent and scared. I think it depends on kind of the culture, and it depends on kind of what they want to do. We did a promotion with H1Z Daybreak Studios, which created a very famous game, H1Z1. Recently, they had a new game, H1BR, which was a battle royale. And we drove a phenomenal amount of traffic. I think it was many times increase in their user base or in their active users because of the promotion and integration we did with Wax. And so we see a lot of value that gets added to game companies working with us. And so we believe that as game companies start to sort of sit around and say, well, wow, how do we engage people in a different way? How do we get more people to play the game, spend more money in the game? They'll realize that, wow, promoting virtual item trading and working with, folks like us is going to be beneficial to them.
How savvy do the users have to be to blockchain? And are they even aware of it? Is it different from game to game?
Well, that's kind of one of our pieces of secret sauce, or one of the ingredients in the secret sauce, I guess, to use the analogy correctly. And that is simply the ease of use trumps everything else. So it's like you do not have to know anything about blockchain. You don't have to know about a wallet. You log onto our system, you can authenticate with Google or Steam or Facebook, or an email and a password. And, it comes with a wallet, and in that wallet, that's where your virtual items sit. So from your perspective, it's really just you interacting with the website. You would know nothing about blockchain. And it's focused on the item you want. You see an item you want, you hit buy, you put in your credit card, and it's done. So that's the kind of ease of use that we have always supported, and it's worked well, which is why, we have millions of transactions a day. So if you go and you look at, the ERC 721, the sort of NFT, CryptoKitty and type systems, we do more volume in an hour than they do in a week of all those games combined, because, you don't have to use MetaMask, you don't have to have Ethereum. It's all about essentially ease of use. So that's really our thesis about making this easy.
So if you have one of these tokens in your wallet and you open up this token, do you see a picture of the item that you bought? Is that attached to the token?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I mean, we launched an explorer for our chain that I was so pleased. Our developers did such a fantastic job, and it's the first truly visual explorer. You can see it at explorer with an R, explorer.wax.io. And on that site, you'll see everything visual. You will see the actual item. For most of the items, you'll be able to click. You'll be able to see them in 3D, move them around. You'll be able to see the provenance, who owned it before, what price it traded at, and any metadata associated with it. So you can actually get information about that item, like, oh, it's related to this game, or these are the specifications on it, or this is where I can go find out more, or participate with the creator. So that blockchain is very visual and very user-friendly. I think it's by far the most user-friendly block explorer out there. And I hope many people copy it, because it works. It works really well.
So with CryptoKitties, people were complaining that it's kind of centralized, like the company behind it could change your cat somehow. There was something like that. And people were talking that the token really has to have the aspects, or the, how do I put it, the different, I guess in a 3D model you would have the vector and the point cloud of this 3D model plus the texture and everything within the smart contract. So that is that what's happening, or is it referencing something with a hash?
So I would say the evolution of real blockchain-based assets is important to keep in mind, and that the instantaneous access to data at the level that we're used to when we click on something is not really the way the blockchain works today anywhere. So in other words, if I wanted to store 500 megabytes of data about an item to display, there is not a good place to do that on a blockchain today.
That's right.
And so the issue is that there is this mix between centralized and decentralized to make it work. And we'll be the first ones to tell you, we have opted for a fully centralized solution, OPSkins, which we ran for years and turned over billions of dollars worth of items to understand how this market worked and how people best want to interact with it, to then migrate it piece by piece to a decentralized solution. I think the truly decentralized solutions, the ones that have just gone full on decentralized, have mostly failed. And I haven't seen an example of anything that is really gone big that isn't centralized to some extent. And even CryptoKitties. I mean, CryptoKitties basically has less than 10,000 users in its entire lifetime. And from the perspective of a collectible audience or a game audience, I mean, that's considered a failure, right? That's tiny. And so the number of users, I think, is directly proportional to how easy it is to use. And the more centralized, unfortunately today, the easier things are in most cases. When you try and make things totally and completely open source, I think at this stage, it makes it hard. So I believe it philosophically, but I think it's a process. It's not instantaneous.
Yeah, and I would also say, true decentralization is needed for things that the state would potentially want to shut down. So issuing your own currency, for instance, needed a blockchain because it's illegal in most modern civilizations to just compete with the government in terms of currency. And this is why Satoshi invented that. And so I don't see the government coming in and shutting down in-game items being sold. But
well, again, there's the government censoring, and then there's the game company censoring, and then there's regulations in various countries who, for example, one country may say, hey, look, this game includes either things that we don't like or we want to censor, and so, we'll take that from you. And that's true today. I mean, you can go around the world and there's a lot of countries who wouldn't allow us to have a free and open discussion. And so when it comes to game assets, which are cross-border, and you can find a game player in a highly censored country as well as one that's free, I think it gives them peace of mind. So, yeah,
interesting. Now, the thing is that traditionally art has been a nice way to launder money, and I mean, I'm not the biggest believer in money laundering and what that is, because it seems like a very new thing. I'd rather have good old-fashioned police work to hunt down criminals. But it's funny because someone was talking so hard about we've got to knuckle down with regulations on Bitcoin and this and that because of money laundering. And I'm thinking, there's kids trading billions of dollars of gun skins, and I'm sure there's the type of money laundering going on there in a way. Is this something that's of concern, or are you guys working to sort of deal with this? Or is this something you're scared of in the future, that regulations will come along to try to regulate this? Or is it a non-problem?
Well, we perform pretty high level and strict KYC and AML on users. So for us, it's not a problem. It's just like any other company that deals with credit card transactions or paying people. So, we stick to the guidelines for companies that handle money. So I don't really see it as a problem.
Right. So, yeah, because the original way of, I guess, people laundering money is they would buy a heap of art off of sort of unknown artists and then make them famous and then sell those paintings back to them. So something like that. And I'm wondering if that would also be a possibility with in-game items. I mean, this is a whole new economy that's flourishing in front of our eyes, where someone could, let's say, make a crypto kitty and then make a cartoon with that card that becomes famous, and then be able to sell that non-fungible asset later on, or things like that.
Seems like a lot of work, but not my area of focus. But yeah, like I said, we abide by KYC and AML rules, so I don't think we really have to worry about it.
Yeah, sure.
You have to
I just find it
identify who you are and prove it, before you can make large transactions on our system.
Yeah. No, I get that. It's a very interesting field, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with next. Is there, CryptoKitties, one thing that made them interesting was also the ability to mate two non-fungibles together to create a new hybrid type of thing. Is this also able to happen through the Wax network?
Yeah. I mean, that idea is actually not a new idea. One of the things that occurs, for example, with skins is you can get a sticker. So let's say I'm at a particular esports event, and esports event issues a sticker which commemorates that event. You can attach that sticker to your skin, right, that you're using for your rifle or for some other asset in the game. So the idea of two things coming together to make a new thing is an idea that's been around and actually quite popular inside the the virtual item space. So I'd say most innovations are slight improvements or slight modifications of what's been done before. Us included. We see what works and then we improve upon it.
So let's say how would I go about if let's say there's a game where I'm inside VR and I create something, I model something, and I want to then sell that or attach a non-fungible token to that to then be able to sell it on, because it's just a virgin object that's in 3D space. how does that happen? How do I work with that? Do I have to go through you guys first, or is it, yeah?
Well, I mean, you would need some sort of platform to display it, and you would probably want some creation tool to generate it. I mean, of course, you can go create it the hard way with, the tools that makers use out there, but then you're probably a pretty sophisticated graphics person and perhaps programmer. There are sites out there, like, for example, one of the partners we work with is a company called Animoca, and they have a game called Sandbox. Sandbox they have a very successful mobile game by the same name, and they've launched or announced, and it's coming out soon. I think it's actually maybe in beta, but it's a way for you to manufacture those assets. And it's fantastic, right? You can go in and you can make it look the way you want to look, and then you basically hit save, and then it generates a one-of-a-kind object for you to use inside their world. And this is kind of how it works if you're in Roblox or Second Life. There's all kinds of ways to make one-of-a-kind items that are yours, or that are you can ultimately maybe share them with somebody else or sell them and so forth. But the idea is that there's a tool designed for you to make stuff. And so those tools are sort of a natural extension for a game that's designed for user-generated content. And then a question is, well, does that item only live inside that game space, or can you use it on Wax? And then, of course, that's where it comes to the discussion of like how we integrate with them. So they have to use APIs, and then they can move those items into the Wax platform, and then people can transparently, buy, sell, and trade them. So there'd be two ways to do it. One way would be, they generate the item directly, sort of natively in Wax, or they generate it on whatever blockchain they want, or however, maybe they're just using databases, and then they basically create a way for it to move from their ecosystem into Wax. And there's other partners we have who are doing something closer to that. So, different companies will go about it a different way, because there's a lot of ways to implement what we're talking about.
Okay, and last question from me, I think, would be, what's the blockchain look like? Is it some sort of federated peg, or is it its own blockchain altogether? If so, what type of blockchain is it? Is it a staking or proof of work?
Yeah, so we're choosing a model for our blockchain, I'd say, when EOS was just coming out to mainnet. And so we replicated a lot of their delegated proof of stake structure. And we've been watching carefully what's worked and what hasn't worked for our own chain. So we have 100% our own protocol chain. And I would say you will find a lot of similarity to EOS within it. In fact, there'll be a lot cross-compatibility, so that Wax dApps will run on EOS and vice versa. But it is our own chain. So.
Okay, and so you have the same sort of 21 delegates that get voted in by stakers or something like that?
Yeah, delegated proof of stakes. Yeah, so there's a certain amount of delegates, and then there's backup, block producers. So yeah, same kind of structure.
Okay, and are they based all around the world and anonymous, or do they have to go through some sort of process to become a
Yeah, you have to qualify to be a block producer. One of the things that I think is challenging with block production is that you really want to make sure that they're actively and engaged. I think that's one of the issues that we've identified out of hundreds of lessons learned, right, from because governance is hard, right? So there's a lot of improvements and modifications and innovations that we'll be announcing very soon, actually, because it's happening this quarter. Those details will be released. But needless to say, yeah, we've observed areas where there's need for improvement, and we've taken action in terms of the design of our system.
I lied. I've got another question.
Uh-oh.
So, do you see Steam, kicking back against this? I mean, Steam and now Google has this. Whatever it's called, Stadia, and there seems to be this war of platforms starting to happen, and I feel that sort of Wax is kind of its own platform in a way, right?
It is a platform. I mean, it's a blockchain. And so, and of course, around that blockchain, we have dozens of services. There's payments, there's authentication, there's storage, there's a block explorer that I mentioned, and lots of other pieces that work. And there'll be more about that in a release coming up soon about some of those real interesting pieces that work. But in this war of platforms, it is an ocean. It is a massive ocean. And to imagine that two little sailboats are going to run into each other in the Pacific Ocean is kind of hilarious, right? Because there's just so much space out there. The gaming market is $140 billion in annual revenue, growing double-digit rates. So there's just plenty to do. And there's so many people operating at the hardware level, at the game publisher level, at the item level, which is where we live. And it's very transactionally driven. And it is actually very hard to do. And so I haven't, in our experience running this business, talking to lots of folks, there are very, very few people who actually deeply understand the mechanism of marketplaces. They're extremely complicated. And so, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people make games and a lot of people distribute games and a lot of people, try to, extract some value in that chain. But I don't know many folks who really understand marketplaces. And that's really the lessons that have driven us to build a very e-commerce centric chain based on the lessons we've learned from virtual items, which I would have to argue is probably one of the hardest but most interesting areas to do that.
Yeah, it is a really interesting space, and I'm looking forward to jumping onto a game that I can actually, own these items. It's interesting. I'm a big fan of VR. I love my Vive, and
oh, cool. Yeah, so we have a couple of things in that space to look out for. So one is the Forge Arena. So they have completely Wax integrated items. And so that one you should check out. It's a fantastic game, so check that out, the Forge Arena. And then there's a VR and AR environment. I think the beta is coming out like any second now. You can stay tuned. That one's with Terra Virtua. And that's a really exciting environment. And again, items that you'll be able to move transparently in and out of their platform and experience in an AR, VR environment. So it's the first place you can actually take a scan that runs on Wax, pick it up, move it around, zoom in, look at it, literally hold it in your hand. And it really, really boggles the mind how incredible it feels to pick up a scan and zoom in super high res and move it around with your hand. It feels really real.
Yeah, that's cool. Part of the whole Steam space is to have this own little space where you can, before you jump into a game, where you just sort of, it's your own room and you can customize it.
Yeah. We have one. In fact, there's a couple of videos of it up. If you look on YouTube, Terra Virtua and Wax, you'll see it. We call it the Wax Hangar. And so it's like all of your virtual items are in there and you can show them off and you can, hey, come on in, come check out, and Josh, hey, look, let's look at this and play with it. And maybe we can do some target practice with it and then go jump into a game together. So.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think, this is a massive space, and I do believe, like most people, when they ask me, what about this project? What about that project on the blockchain space? And I just sort of cringe and think, nah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of them are trying to put real world objects into a blockchain. And in fact, we at Vaultoro here, we deal with Bitcoin and physical gold, and we're looking to tokenize the gold ownership as well. Instead of having a PDF, you tokenize it and allow that to be tradable. But it's an extremely hard thing to do. You can't just make an ERC20, and which some people have done, and say, oh, this equals 1 gram. It's because you're dealing with a different interface between the real world and the virtual world. And this goes for all sorts of things, including oracles with prediction markets and all sorts of stuff. This interface between real world and virtual world is really, really hard to get right. And where I think that doesn't exist is in the in-game items, because you're talking about a digital native thing and a crypto that can then attach itself to that digital item and be tradable. So I think that's you guys are onto a pretty interesting thing, and it seems like you guys are doing a good job with it.
Yeah, I think we're excited. There's a ton more to do. We've seen really strong adoption the past 6 months or so. So onward and upwards.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how all this stuff pans out, and also the interoperability. We'll see if we'll be able to play around with other types of tokens. I have Tatiana coin, and Tatiana coin needs other artist coins to trade against. So we never thought of it as something that trades, but when there's enough volume, it'll be cool to see how all of these things can sort of interact.
Yeah, I believe that if you have an open platform that provides utility, then it's going to happen, right? If it solves a real problem. The problem is today with these designs is they're hard to use, right? So like if I can use Tatiana coin, but it requires MetaMask and it requires me 9 steps to get my Ethereum, figure it out, put it in a wallet, do this, do that. Like the average artist is just going to give up, right? And so to really get mass adoption, it's just got to work. It's got to be. You've onboarded to Venmo or you've onboarded to Airbnb. It takes minutes, right, to do that, and seconds, to understand it, and you get it intuitively. So if things aren't that easy, and using payment methods that people are used to, it's just very difficult for it to go mainstream or to go big.
So you're a longtime entrepreneur. I'm wondering, what is it like to build a business now with blockchain versus other companies in the last 2 decades?
Well, Tatiana, I'm glad you asked that, because I feel like there's a lot of the same in terms of like platforms need to be built, infrastructure has to be in place, financing needs to be secured. So like the same problems are there. It's just that things are moving so fast, like way faster than they did in the first .com or the second .com. And in a way, it's almost like blockchain has kind of gotten ahead of itself in that there was a lot more enthusiasm. We saw this in the ICO boom kind of last year, and then the subsequent decline of interest in those projects. It's like the investors really rushed in, so a lot of money became available quickly, and that's very different. But I think that it hasn't been necessarily spent as judiciously as it has in the last 2 phases. You could argue maybe the first .com had a lot of enthusiasm, but it still took years to get to the point that the ICO craze generated capital or dollars for this. So I think that things are moving a lot faster, though I think it's still slower than people want. Like people thought, hey, we're going to see these companies create really incredible businesses in months, and I still think it's years. So, but the same problems we still have, which are standards. Like, how is staking done? There's literally 1,000 ways to do staking, and it's really complicated and hard. How is governance done? Again, many ways to do it, and it's really hard. And then, how do we interface with the rest of the world? Like, if you have crypto or token or coin in your name, like still traditional banks are like not really interested in working with you. The app stores are really make it difficult with crypto related projects. So when you add all that together, and those platforms represent the last mile and the way that you reach end consumers and make it easy, it ends up being a huge impediment to success, at least in the short term.
So why are you passionate about this space? What keeps it interesting and engaging for you? Do you see any other projects that might have a tougher time? Maybe they'll lose their steam. There's a lot of founder enthusiasm that can also wane, or even worse, abandoning their vision for the company?
Well, I think the thing that keeps me passionate about this particular space is we're solving a particular pain point, right? Which we can talk about in more detail, and about users owning things that are valuable. So that's interesting to me, and I'm an inherent problem solver, love doing that kind of thing. But it's also the audience. They are so supportive. It's like we wake up every day, and the supporters we have in Telegram, the supporters we have in Twitter, are just so engaged in wanting to see this work and support and like getting the word out, getting involved in testing things, spreading, posting, what's going on. So the enthusiasm of the audience definitely is a big plus and keeps me like excited to find out, what they want every day. I see it difficult for a lot of other projects, and I've talked to a lot of other founders, and they are facing regulatory challenges. Obviously, with the decline in their capital base, if they didn't exit into fiat, they're maybe sitting on Ethereum that's worth like, 1/3 or 1/5 or 1/10 of what they thought it was going to be worth. So, they have to figure out how to turn their business into a profitable business like yesterday. So they're under a massive amount of pressure. That's tough. It's a really, really hard place. A lot of these projects are having to go back to the well, raise equity the good old-fashioned way, and if they're not good enough, they're not going to get funded. So we're seeing that, and then of course people having to pivot, which means, hey, I got to change my vision, and if this doesn't work, we're kind of done. So that's a tough thing. But some of the best companies out there came from pivots when people are at the end of their lifeline. Like look at Slack, like that was a video game first, and look at Twitter, and there's like a long list of companies that came out of like, let's try this, and it worked. But for every one that worked, there's probably 100 that like failed. So it's going to be tough.
Do you think that the bull versus bear market make a difference in blockchain development? Because right now we're seeing a resurgence in prices across the ecosystem. Some people make the argument that when the market is in a bear position, we're actually getting more things done because it takes out all the noise. But what do you think?
I agree. Everyone is just focused heads down when it's bear. And I'll tell you this much, like I'm friends with the folks over at Blockfolio, and if the price is ticking up, like you could tell there's a ton of time and attention that's being taken away from building whatever people are building to looking at their portfolio. So I think the bull is a distraction, though of course I'm personally excited when prices go up, but I do think it's a distraction, and I prefer actually the concentration that comes from the bear side, but it doesn't make me happy when I do look at Blockfolio. I will literally like put it way down somewhere I can't like get to it easily on my phone. So during like the past maybe like 10 months, it's been that way because it's like I don't even want to think about it. And that's good. That's good for most people, probably, to less time staring at their portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know though. The thing is that what I've seen on my end with Crypto Media Hub is that companies, because of the bear market, are unable to do marketing and stuff like that because they have to cut back. So, and I also find it to be very difficult to make decisions because people don't know if it's going to go up or down. And a lot of people, I think, hodled a little bit too long. Do you think people are going to learn their lesson and maybe liquidate on the next bull run a little bit so they have some operating capital?
Yeah, I think so. And I've already seen it. Like when you see these prices pop up, they get whacked right back down. And it's pretty clear. It's probably people who are just like waiting on an uptick, to get a little bit more because it's been flat for a while or trending down for most. So yeah, I think people learn their lesson. But there's a lot of people I know who sold at 19,000 because, and I was one of them. Because I've been through the last great crypto winter of 2013, 2014. It went from like 200 to 1,200, and of course we thought we were the smartest people in the room. And then when it went back down to like 300, we were like, yeah, this thing is toast. And it took 15 months plus for it to come back before we saw a resurgence. So. Yeah, for people who've been through the first crypto winter, I think they learned. Now you have a whole bunch of people who've been through the next crypto winter, and so they're on the next high. Believe me, they will be selling as other people rush in.
Well, I would hope so, but I will say this: that I was there for the bull run in 13, and I didn't sell then. And I didn't sell this time around. So I don't know. Maybe my greed is getting to me.
I just hold. That's all you got to do. I mean, I always tell people who ask me, I'm like, look, if you have an 18 to 24 month horizon, you'll do fine because you can pick any 18 to 24 months and you made money. If you look, it's just with the price of Bitcoin, not all coins, but Bitcoin. So I just think your investment horizon has to be long enough, even if you bought at a high or relative high.
I think that we're all victims of the crypto religion, and some of us are a little bit more devoted than others.
Yeah, religious.
Which isn't always a good thing.
I know.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So anything else that you wanted to cover? Because I think we got those down and we've got a little bit of meat, and then Joanna, she can edit these together. Do you have any other questions?
No, that's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. I think just wrapping that around it will give it a little bit more, like less about wax and more about like just talking. So I appreciate that.
Awesome. No problem.
Thank
Great.
you. I really appreciate your flexibility around it.
No worries. I'll get that over to you. Either we're going to put it out probably tomorrow. So I'll get it over to you probably tomorrow, unless we decide to put it out today for some reason, but we probably won't. And we'll email it over to you guys to share, and we'll be sharing it on our social networks and everything like that. Fantastic. Are you coming into town for a consensus?
There's a good chance. So if I do, I would love to see you. We could have dinner or catch up, or go drink, whatever.
Yeah, that would be cool. I'm theoretically not drinking. I'm trying to just make my acid reflux go away. But what we can do is I think I'm going to organize a music crypto comedian night on the Friday, before Magical Crypto Friends. So I'll be performing. My friend is going to do a comedy set. We're going to try and get some other acts going. So I'll let you know what we come up with for that. It's sort of a last minute thing that we decided to put together. Mm-hmm. We're still finding a venue and everything, and we're going to go from there. But yeah, that's the plan.
I love art and crypto. Those are the two things that go together. Oh, by the way, I made this fantastic piece for wax I want to show you. I want to get your opinion. I'm thinking of maybe making.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Malcolm, for joining us today. Is there anywhere that people can go to check everything out? Give us some links.
Yeah, I think wax.io is probably the best place. And there's a blog there. And you should definitely follow us on Twitter. Pretty much everything interesting happening shows up there. And so that would be a good place to go to stay in touch with us.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. Josh, did you have any more questions?
No, that's it.
All righty. Well, listen, everybody, thanks so much for tuning into the Tatiana Show. One more time, let's give a special thank you to our sponsor, Token Talks.
Yeah.
Go to wing.vc/podcast and get more information about them.
Yeah, and go to voltoro.com. That's Volt as in gold vault, and oro, which is Spanish for gold, if you want to trade Bitcoin and physical gold. That's included.
Awesome. And please make sure to check out cryptomediahub.com and check out our other podcasts, proofoflovecast.com, and you can get a little bit of love in your life too. Anyway, thanks everyone for listening. Have a great day. Take care. Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
Ross Ulbricht is serving a double life sentence without parole for all nonviolent charges for creating a website. Please help free this peaceful man. Go to freeross.org and sign and share the petition.
Thank you for listening to The Tatiana Show. Please follow us on Twitter at Queen Tatiana or on Facebook and Instagram at Tatiana Moroz Music. More episodes can be found at thetatianashow.com, and make sure you leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends. The Tatiana Show has been brought to you by cryptomediahub.com, a boutique marketing and PR agency for Bitcoin and beyond.